Hello friends. Today we're going through into the book Indistractable by Nir Eyal. Meet Daniel, a boy from a small town whose life seemed to run on a routine. But lately, he felt trapped in a strange web of his own making, scrolling through his phone, binge-watching random videos, and wasting time on meaningless activities had become his daily habit. When he tried to study, his focus would last only 10 minutes before he'd lose interest. Concentrating on work that felt like a distant memory. One day, while standing by the bookshelf, his eyes landed on a book titled Indistractable: How to Control Your Attention and Choose Your Life. Just reading the title gave him a jolt. This was exactly what he needed. Without hesitation, he picked it up and started reading. On the very first page, one line stopped him in his tracks. The opposite of distraction isn't focus, it's traction. He muttered to himself, "Traction? What's that?" Intrigued, he kept reading. As he turned the pages, he realized his biggest enemy wasn't outside. It was inside his own mind. The book revealed a harsh truth. We often blame external distractions, but many of our problems stem from internal triggers. Daniel started reflecting deeply on this idea. The book's first lesson hit hard. Distractions are often rooted in emotions like boredom, anxiety, and stress. He thought to himself, "These are my everyday feelings." Inspired, he decided to write them down. As he jotted down his thoughts, he began noticing patterns. Every time he felt stressed, he'd pick up his phone and start scrolling through reels. Whenever studying bored him, he'd call his friends for pointless chatter. And when anxiety hit, he'd seek anything to distract himself. He chuckled, "This book is exposing all my secrets." The next day, Daniel decided to test the book's lesson. He began observing his daily activities. He noticed that whenever an uncomfortable feeling arose, his first instinct was to escape reality. One time, while sitting down to study, he felt a wave of anxiety. Instead of running away, he acknowledged the feeling. He recalled the book's advice. The key to overcoming internal triggers is to accept and understand them. Taking a deep breath, he asked himself, "Daniel, what are you feeling right now?" Slowly, he admitted, "I feel anxious. I'm afraid I'll fail." Then he asked himself a new question. Is this anxiety stopping me, or can it motivate me to do better? This perspective was revolutionary for him. He started using his anxiety as fuel instead of running from it. Every time he felt uneasy, he paused and observed his emotions. One evening, he realized boredom was his biggest enemy. Whenever he felt bored, he'd chase distractions. This time, instead of pushing boredom away, he tried to understand it. He thought, maybe boredom is a sign I miss doing something I used to love. He picked up his old paintbrushes and started painting, a hobby he hadn't touched in years. For the first time, he felt genuinely engaged. Daniel realized that when you learn to sit with your feelings, distractions naturally lose their grip. Applying the book's first lesson to his life, he discovered that awareness was the key. Whenever he felt distracted, he'd pause and ask himself, "What am I feeling right now?" Over time, he realized the solution wasn't ignoring distractions or fighting them. It was understanding their root causes. One day, while writing in his journal, his sister asked, "What are you writing?" Smiling, Daniel replied, "I'm having a conversation with my feelings." His sister laughed, "Wow, you've really changed. You used to need noise around you all the time, and now you're journaling." Daniel grinned and said, "It's all about understanding my internal triggers. Once I got that, I didn't need distractions anymore." But Daniel knew this was just the beginning. The first lesson had taught him the power of introspection, but he still needed to learn how to turn awareness into action. He promised himself to read the next chapters with equal focus and apply them to his life. The book's first lesson had started Daniel's journey of identifying distractions and digging into their root causes. But one question kept nagging him. If I learn to avoid distractions, what's the next step? What should I do with my free time? The next chapter held the answer, titled Priorities. traction over distraction. It began with a powerful line. What happens next? Stick around for Daniel's transformation as he learns to reclaim his life one step at a time. The idea struck Daniel. Music plays. If you enjoy our free summaries, consider subscribing to our channel, purchasing our membership, or supporting us through UPI. Now back to the summary. Traction is anything that pulls you toward your goals and values. Distraction is anything that pulls you away from them. This line hit Daniel as if someone had gently nudged him awake. He thought, I've never even considered what my traction is, what my goals are, or what my values are. He continued reading the book, which elaborated, both traction and distraction are actions. The difference is that one moves you in the direction you want to go, while the other pulls you in the opposite direction. Daniel asked himself, but where do I want to go? The question felt heavy. He pulled out his journal and stared at a blank page for a while before asking himself, what do I want in this life? The answer wasn't easy, but he slowly started to write. He listed small goals, performing well in exams, improving his fitness, and rekindling his creative hobbies. The next day, Daniel read further in the book, which said that the most critical way to achieve traction is time management. If your time isn't under your control, you can never achieve traction, the book explained. He thought, maybe this is my biggest problem. My time controls me, I don't control it. The book advised that to achieve traction, one must deliberately schedule their time. Without a schedule, you fall into chaos, it stated. Daniel liked the idea. For the first time, he decided to divide his day hour by hour. He planned a proper daily schedule, not just for work, but also for enjoyment. The book clarified that traction isn't limited to productive tasks. Activities that bring you joy can also be traction as long as they align with your values and goals. Daniel allocated his mornings to studying. He decided to dedicate 2 distraction-free hours to studying and turned on the Do Not Disturb mode on his phone. He wrote in a notebook, "This is traction time." In the evening, he scheduled an hour for fitness. He loved running, so he planned for jogging. He considered this part of traction too, because fitness was a long-term goal. But then he learned something even more interesting. The book suggested scheduling time for enjoyment as well. Daniel thought, man, I've been living in guilt. Whenever I enjoy something, I feel like I'm wasting time. He found himself tempted to check his phone repeatedly, but reminded himself, Daniel, this is traction time. You need to work toward your goals. When he went jogging that evening, he realized how much the routine improved his mood. He thought, this concept of traction is amazing. When every action aligns with your goals and values, everything feels meaningful. That night, for the first time, he watched an episode of his favorite show without feeling guilty. It was the first time he enjoyed an activity without worrying about wasting time. As days passed, Daniel's schedule became a habit. He learned to replace distractions with purposeful actions. But the most significant realization was that traction isn't just about work. Traction is about doing anything that makes you a better person, whether it's studying, fitness, or even relaxation. One day, he shared his schedule with his friend Leo. Leo laughed and said, "Man, this all sounds so boring. I just want to chill." Daniel smiled and replied, "Chilling can be traction too if you choose it consciously. The key is that it shouldn't pull you away from your priorities." Leo seemed to understand, but asked, "So should I give up all my fun?" Daniel explained, "No, man, have fun. But plan it. Unplanned fun often becomes a distraction." Daniel had now fully applied the concept of traction in his life. Every night, he reflected on his day to see how much traction he created and how many distractions he faced. While reviewing his schedule one evening, he added a new goal: writing. "I've always wanted to write but never made time for it. Maybe now it can be part of my traction," he thought. He allocated an hour for writing and began exploring his creative ideas. Daniel had finally understood the meaning of traction in life. He realized that when every action aligns with your priorities, you not only achieve your goals, but also enjoy life in a much more fulfilling way. Daniel had come to understand the difference. He had learned to align his priorities, his schedule was well organized, and things seemed to be falling into place. But one thing still bothered him, his impulses. Whenever Daniel tried to focus on his traction time, his mind would suddenly want to do something else. While studying, his hand would automatically reach for his phone. During his runs, his brain would make excuses like, "I'm too tired today. I'll do it tomorrow." Daniel knew that these impulses were the roadblocks on his journey. One day, he picked up a book and started reading the next chapter, Use Pacts to Prevent Distractions. The concept intrigued him. It talked about creating agreements with yourself to reduce distractions. The book explained 3 types of pacts: effort pacts, price pacts, and identity pacts. Excited, Daniel continued reading. He first learned about effort pacts. The idea was simple: make undesirable behaviors harder to engage with. Daniel thought, this is exactly what I need. I keep picking up my phone. If I make it harder to do so, maybe I can break this habit. He took immediate action. He uninstalled all social media apps from his phone. But Daniel knew this alone wouldn't be enough. He went a step further and decided to leave his phone in another room during his study sessions. The next day, when Daniel sat down to study, his mind kept saying, check your phone. But when he reached out, the phone wasn't there. This small change started helping him. He realized that when distractions became harder to access, their power diminished. The following day, Daniel read about price packs. This idea made him skeptical at first. The book suggested that involving financial stakes could help achieve goals. He thought, risking money sounds extreme, but maybe I should try it once. Daniel roped in his friend Leo. He said, here's the deal, Leo. If I don't stick to my schedule this week, I'll give you $100. Leo laughed and said, bro, I'm just waiting for free money. I can't wait for you to fail. Daniel took this as a challenge. On the first day, when he hesitated to go for his run, he immediately told himself, Daniel, if you skip today, you'll owe Leo $100. That thought alone made him lace up his shoes and head out the door. By the end of the week, Daniel realized the price pact was working. That small financial stake held him accountable. Most importantly, it made him take his habits seriously. Finally, Daniel moved on to the third concept, identity pacts. This concept felt the most powerful to him. The book explained that aligning your identity with your desired behavior makes fighting distractions easier. One example stood out to him. Call yourself indistractable, and you'll start acting like one. Daniel thought, this is interesting. If I start believing I'm indistractable, maybe my subconscious will support me. He made this part of his daily affirmations. Every morning, standing in front of the mirror, Daniel would say, I am indistractable. I focus on my goals. I don't let distractions overpower my priorities. At first, it felt awkward. He laughed at himself, thinking, what am I even doing? But over time, it became a habit. Whenever his mind started to wander, he reminded himself, Daniel, you're indistractable. That's who you are. One evening, while hanging out with his friends, someone asked, Dude, how have you become so disciplined lately? Daniel smiled and said, Because I'm indistractable. That's my identity now. His friends joked, Wow, got yourself a new superpower, huh? But Daniel knew this was no joke. He genuinely felt himself changing. By applying all 3 pacts in his life, Daniel realized that distractions weren't as hard to overcome anymore. The effort pact stopped him from easily accessing distractions. The price pact held him accountable. And the identity pact shifted his mindset entirely. One day, he wrote in his journal, Distractions still come into my life, but now I can control them. I've learned that focus is a skill that improves with practice. Daniel knew his journey wasn't over yet, but he felt confident now. With these tools, he could stay aligned with his priorities and continue moving forward. Daniel had mastered minimizing distractions, but one challenge still haunted him, external triggers. These were the things beyond his control that stole his attention. like constant phone notifications, random calls from friends, and the noise at home. Determined to address this, Daniel turned to the next chapter of his book, Hack Back External Triggers. The chapter began with a striking line. If we don't take control of our environment will take control of us. This hit Daniel hard. He realized he needed to actively manage the distractions around him. He looked at his phone, the device that had caused the most chaos in his life. The book emphasized that notifications are one of the biggest sources of external triggers. Without hesitation, Daniel went to his phone settings and turned off all unnecessary notifications. Wow, he said to himself, no more annoying pings. But he didn't stop there. He simplified his phone's home screen, removing all social media and game apps. Now, whenever he unlocked his phone, there was nothing to tempt him. He even set a new rule. Social media time was restricted to 9 p.m. to 9:15 p.m. daily. The first day was tough. His mind kept wandering to his phone, but when he picked it up, there were no notifications. Gradually, Daniel got used to not reaching for his phone without a purpose. His next target? His laptop. Daniel realized that every time he opened his laptop for studying, emails, and random browsing stole his focus. He decided to tackle this too. Daniel turned off email notifications and disabled pop-ups. This small change significantly improved his focus quality. After that, he focused on his communication habits. The book had a key tip. One way to fight external triggers is by setting boundaries around communication. Daniel noticed that random calls disrupted his focus time throughout the day. So, he made a new rule. He'd only take calls between 7 p.m. and 8 p.m. He sent a polite message to his friends and family. I'll only be available for calls in the evening. If it's urgent, please send a message. At first, his friends found it odd, but they eventually respected his discipline. Seeing his productivity soar, they even admired his resolve. Next, Daniel turned his attention to his physical environment. His study space was cluttered with books, notes, and even snacks. The book emphasized that a clean and organized workspace boosts productivity. Daniel immediately cleaned his desk, leaving only essential study materials. To make his space more calming, he added a small plant. It gave him a sense of peace and focus. One day, while deeply immersed in his studies, his brother Leo entered the room and started chatting. Politely, Daniel said, "Leo, this is my focus time. Can we talk later?" Leo frowned, but eventually agreed. "All right, I won't disturb you. By the way, you've really changed." Daniel felt proud of this small victory. He realized that boundaries weren't just for gadgets. They applied to relationships too. Over the next few weeks, Daniel's productivity improved dramatically. The steps he took to minimize external triggers started showing visible results. One day, his friend Ethan came over and said, "Dude, you barely touch your phone now, and you're always studying. What's your secret formula?" Daniel smiled and replied, "It's not a formula, Ethan. I've just learned to hack my external triggers. Now I decide when to work and when to have fun." Ethan was curious. "But how did you manage it so well?" Daniel explained. "First, I took control of my phone. Then, I set boundaries for my laptop and calls. And the most important thing, I created an environment that supports my productivity." Ethan nodded in admiration. "Man, you've become a pro." Daniel laughed. "I'm still learning. Hacking external triggers is a process, and I'm getting better at it every day." Daniel understood one crucial thing. Distractions can never be completely eliminated, but if you manage your environment wisely, you can significantly reduce their power. Daniel had learned numerous ways to boost his productivity and manage distractions. He understood his internal triggers, recognized the importance of traction and packs, and had started managing external triggers effectively. However, one thing kept bothering him: his setbacks. Whenever he failed to fully achieve his goals or let distractions take over for a day, he felt defeated. "I worked so hard and still these distractions won. Maybe I'll never be truly disciplined," he thought to himself. One day, as he continued reading the book he'd started, the next lesson caught his attention. Embrace a growth mindset. The very first line made him pause and reflect. Setbacks aren't failures. They're opportunities to learn and grow. Daniel pushed aside all his frustration and began reading the chapter with focus. It explained that having a growth mindset means viewing every challenge as a learning experience. Instead of seeing failures as a reflection of who you are, consider them opportunities to improve. For the first time, Daniel realized that setbacks don't mean failure. They simply highlight areas for adjustment. He made a promise to himself. From now on, he wouldn't view failures with negativity, but with curiosity. The next day, Daniel started his day with a renewed mindset. He told himself, if I get distracted today, I'll try to understand why it happened instead of blaming myself. That day, as he was studying, his mind began to wander. He picked up his phone and started scrolling through social media. 10 minutes later, he caught himself, put the phone down, and returned to his studies. This time, instead of feeling guilty, he thought, all right, this was a setback, but why did it happen? Maybe I needed a break. He decided to plan proper breaks into his schedule going forward. This small shift in his thinking became a major breakthrough for Daniel. He realized that when setbacks are viewed as learning opportunities, they're not failures, they're stepping stones. In the book, Daniel read another important principle of the growth mindset: focus on incremental progress. It explained that instead of feeling overwhelmed by big goals, one should focus on small, manageable steps. Inspired by this, Daniel wrote in his journal, I'll try to get 1% better every day. I don't need to be perfect, I just need to be consistent. He broke his big goals into smaller milestones. If he couldn't study for 2 hours one day, he committed to just 30 minutes the next day. This small step taught him to stay stress-free while strengthening his habits. One day, as Daniel reflected on his progress, he noticed that distractions still happened, but he didn't get stuck on them anymore. He had embraced challenges as part of his growth journey. Another principle of the growth mindset he learned was reframing challenges. One day, his sister, Emma, asked him, Daniel, you're so busy. Doesn't all this stress you out? Daniel smiled and replied, it used to, but now I see stress as a challenge. If I can learn to manage it, I'll grow stronger. Curious, Emma asked, how do you handle distractions then? Daniel explained, whenever I notice I'm distracted, I see it as a signal. It tells me I need better boundaries. Slowly, I've learned to face challenges instead of avoiding them. Over time, Daniel saw himself transforming into someone who didn't fear setbacks, but embraced them. He realized that avoiding distractions and challenges wasn't the key to success. Facing them and learning from them was. One day, Daniel shared this insight with his friend Leo. Leo said, all of this sounds great, but it's so hard to apply in real life. When I fail, I feel so demotivated that I don't want to do anything. Daniel smiled and said, that's the difference between a fixed mindset and a growth mindset. A fixed mindset says failure defines you. A growth mindset says failure is your chance to learn. It's just a matter of perspective. Leo asked, so how do I start? Daniel advised him, set small goals. After every setback, ask yourself, what can I learn from this? And most importantly, don't be too hard on yourself. Progress takes time. From that day on, Daniel began celebrating every setback. He realized that when we view setbacks as opportunities for growth, we build resilience. One day, as he was journaling, he wrote, setbacks aren't roadblocks, they're stepping stones. Every time I fall, I become a little stronger. Daniel understood that having a growth mindset is a journey, not a destination. The journey of Daniel, from distraction to fulfillment. Daniel was like most of us, a person who constantly struggled with distractions. But one day, everything changed when he decided to shift his mindset. He stopped seeing distractions as enemies and began viewing them as opportunities for growth. Daniel's journey was not a smooth ride. Each phase of his life taught him something new. He learned to strengthen himself against internal triggers, harness the power of traction and packs, control external triggers, and embrace setbacks with a growth mindset. One day, as Daniel flipped through the pages of his journal, he reflected on how far he had come. He remembered being someone who gave up on every little distraction. But today, he was disciplined, focused, and resilient. At first, Daniel had seen distractions as obstacles. But now he understood that distractions were actually opportunities to understand and improve himself. In his journal, he wrote, "Distractions have taught me that true strength lies not in avoiding them, but in staying committed to my priorities despite their presence." The turning point in Daniel's journey came when he redefined his life's big goals. He realized that productivity wasn't just about accomplishing tasks or hitting targets. It was about investing his time and energy into things that truly mattered. He crafted a new list of goals. 1. Continuously improving himself. 2. Spending meaningful time with family and friends. 3. Working on passion projects. 4. Prioritizing mental peace and happiness. Daniel then created a new schedule, not just for work and studies, but also for self-care, hobbies, and relationships. He learned that productivity wasn't just about output. It was about living a balanced and fulfilling life. One evening, Daniel was sitting on the rooftop watching the sunset. His sister, Leah, joined him and said, "Daniel, you've really figured out how to balance life. You used to be so stressed and busy, but now you seem so relaxed." Daniel smiled and replied, "Leah, this balance didn't happen by magic. I've learned to live with distractions and grow from them. I realized that life isn't about being perfect every day. It's about getting just a little better every day." Leah responded, "You're truly an inspiration. Have you ever thought about sharing your journey with others?" Daniel liked the idea. He decided to share his story and lessons through a blog. He felt that if his journey could help someone else, it would be his biggest achievement. The next day, Daniel wrote his first blog post. He shared his struggles, lessons, and practical tips. He wrote, "Overcoming distractions isn't a one-day battle. It's a journey where every setback makes you stronger. If you want to be disciplined, focused, and resilient, the first step is to trust yourself and aim to improve by just 1% every day." Daniel's blog soon became popular. Many people found inspiration in his story and started making changes in their own lives. Every day, Daniel received messages from readers sharing their progress and challenges. This sense of community made Daniel happy, knowing his journey was no longer just his own. As time passed, Daniel expanded his goals. He started hosting workshops and webinars about distractions, focus, and the growth mindset. His talks weren't just about productivity. They emphasized the importance of balance and fulfillment. One day, when Daniel met his old friend Leo said, "Daniel, you've truly done something incredible. I remember how you used to struggle with distractions, and now you're teaching others how to stay focused." Daniel laughed and replied, "Leo, I couldn't have done this alone. Books, lessons, and most importantly, setbacks have shaped me into who I am today." Daniel's story didn't end there. He realized that learning and growth never stop. Every day brought new challenges, but now he saw opportunities in them. By overcoming distractions, Daniel didn't just transform himself, he inspired those around him. And so, Daniel turned his journey into a new chapter of purpose and fulfillment. He made his life not just distraction-free, but purpose-driven and meaningful. So, friends, this was today's summary. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for listening till the end.